and German American, like you and your blood, your roots, they are either all equal or they are not in your mind. What is the answer?
I'd say they're all created in the image of God, and they're equal in His eyes. And if they're citizens of the United States, they're equal in the eyes of the law. Individuals will contribute differently, not equally to this civilization and society, and certain groups of people will do more from a productive side than other groups of people will. That's just a statistical fact.
The panel is here. CNN political commentator, former Bush White House director for Black Outreach, Harris Denard, CNN political commentator, former Clinton White House aide, Keith Boykin is here, and CNN political commentator and George W. Bush White House official, Margaret Hoover. Margaret, I wish there had been a still photo of your face when Steve King was talking. What is Steve King saying?
You know, look,
Can you translate, please?
No. Question Barack Obama's birth certificate. So let's just get rid of this farce that he characterized as mainstream Republican thought about the philosophy of America, about American individualism, about individuals who contribute to the productivity, and frankly, the halls of history in terms of what makes for human advancement. He doesn't characterize that. And so, nope, can't explain it.
But Steve King is also has, since the campaign, been in a unique position. He was a supporter of Donald Trump's. He was right along there with him. I mean, Paris, what's your reaction when you hear Steve King say this?
Look, it just talks about how the Republican Party is pretty diverse in its opinions about how we view nationalism, how we view American exceptionalism. And I think that there are a lot of people in this country who feel that because of illegal immigration, the country as we know it is under attack or is under threat. But the thing that I think that we should...
But how is Steve King helping himself? Is Steve King helping...
I don't think
the Republican Party with these.
No, I mean, look, the chairman of the Iowa GOP came out decisively and condemned what he said and said we are a nation of immigrants, we're a nation of diversity. But I think that there's a way to articulate his message. If Congressman King is saying that those who come to this country should come here and learn English because I want them to advance, because I want them to contribute to society, and the best way they can do that is by learning having a better job, I get that. But some of the things that he says, or the way he says it, comes across as insensitive and totally outside of mainstream.
He has multiple opportunities to clear it up. Maybe this is a 140 characters problem. I would argue absolutely not. There was not a 140 characters interview that he just did with Chris.
I don't know if Paris is agreeing with Steve King or spinning for Steve King. I'm a little confused by what he's saying.
Paris, are you spinning or agreeing?
In the green room, he seemed to say he was agreeing with him, so maybe you're backtracking on what you said earlier a few minutes ago?
No, what I'm saying is I'm a Republican, and what I try to do on this platform, or every platform, is highlight what people are saying about my party. Mm-hmm. And so if there is some truth to what he might be talking about in the greater context of immigration and the greater context of what it means to assimilate into American society, then I can try to explain that to them.
You're spinning
but siding with Geert Wilders, I mean...
Yes, it was siding with the far-right nationalists and Dutch nationalists. And this guy, Geert Wilders, is a part of the problem, actually, and the international problem that goes to Marine Le Pen and here with Donald Trump, which is part of the reason why I disagree a little bit with what Margaret is saying, because she's saying that Steve King is the President of the United States who's saying the same sort of racist, xenophobic things. We have Steve Bannon, a white nationalist, who is a chief strategist to Donald Trump in the White House.
Keith, you're not going to say with a straight face that Steve King is a mainstream Republican.
I'm saying that Steve King is now just as mainstream as Donald Trump and as Steve Bannon. They're part of the Republican administration in the White House. You can't distance yourself. Once you align yourself with a guy named Donald Trump, who has said the most racist, xenophobic, outrageous statements over the course of the past 2 years, you can't start picking and parsing which Republican are acceptable and which aren't acceptable, because Steve King has said nothing worse than what Donald Trump and Steve Bannon has said.
Look, you make a very fair point.
And David Duke, by the way, is on the side of Steve King. He came out and endorsed what Steve King said. And he's endorsing him, and Paris Denard, a black man, won't even condemn what Steve King is saying.
If you hold on,
who's being endorsed by David Duke, a Klansman.
I'm not going to nitpick anything you said. I'm not going to
nitpick
anything you said about the Steve Bannon and the Donald Trump and the Steve King and then putting themselves together, the fact that they are leading a Republican White House and a Republican administration. What I am going to push back about is the characterization that they represent mainstream Republicans, that is like there's a long history of that.
The President of the United States
I
doesn't represent mainstream Republicans. The Republican Party supports him and voted him. They nominated him. How can he not represent mainstream Republicans?
There are so many Republicans, as you know.
And you're defending him. And you're defending
I am
him.
not defending him. Do not put words in my mouth.
Okay, you're not
I am not defending him.
Steve King, but
Thank
you're
you.
defending.
Thank you.
You're
And I am not defending Donald Trump. I am not defending President Paris.
Hold on, Paris.
Then Paris is defending
needs,
Donald Trump.
That's true.
You get to
Stop. Go. There are diverse Republicans across this country. Yes, you're right. 90% of Republicans voted for Donald Trump, but that does not mean 90% of Republicans are racist. It does not mean 90% of Republicans are anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, anti-immigration, anti any of the things that Donald Trump has stood for in the last 100 days.
How do you support somebody who
what
does
you have
those
to do is
things
see this with a little bit more nuance, because the American people do, and all of us here do.
Paris, you get to respond.
Yeah, I defend and I support President Trump because I don't believe he's a racist. As a black man, this is a person who I believe is not those things that you describe him to be. I don't believe it, and I can defend him because I don't believe that it's true. I think that 8% of African Americans and the 13% of African American males who support it don't believe that to be true either. Now, as it relates to the Republican Party, we elected this man, but so did a lot of Democrats, so did a lot of independents, and a lot of people who don't look like Donald Trump, that look like me, who cross party lines to support this man. And so for you to say that make these baseless claims to talk about the president has said something that was racist. He said no one thing about African Americans that was disparaging, rude, or racist during the campaign or as president.
True.
That is true.
He said that African Americans live in hellholes. He spent 5 years attacking the first black president of the United States, Barack Obama. He has a history of racial discrimination in housing in New York City. He attacked the Central Park Five, who were exonerated and accused them of being engaged in a rape they did not commit. This is a guy who also appointed Jeff Sessions to be his attorney general. This is a guy who has a history. He even said, this is recorded in a book where Donald Trump said that black people were people who didn't trust because he didn't want them with his money. He'd rather have Jews handling his money than black people. That's not he said laziness is a trait in blacks. That's not a characteristic of somebody who I think is not racist. And you, Paris, noted as an African-American Republican, should have as much courage as Margaret Hoover, a white woman who's actually standing up to Donald Trump, but you're not even doing that.
No,
David Duke is standing with you. Where does that put you, Paris?
You should caution yourself on how you categorize me as a black man, because the only person that gives David Duke any type of credibility are liberals like yourself. David Duke is so irrelevant. He is so not even a part of the Republican Party. He doesn't have a following. He doesn't have a base. He doesn't have any type of support. He's not.
And
He's never
Donald
been.
Trump wouldn't repudiate him until 24 or 48 hours after his question about him during the campaign.
Did he repudiate him? Did he repudiate him?
After he was pressured?
Did he? It's a simple question. Yes or no? You won't answer because you know the truth.
No,
he repudiated him,
Donald Trump
and you know that he did.
He can repudiate Meryl Streep and SNL and Alec Baldwin in a second, as soon as he sees it on TV in a tweet. But he can't wait. He can't repudiate David Duke or a white nationalist until he's pressured to do so. There is a distinction. The man is not serious about reaching out to black people.
We are talking about Donald Trump, but I want to Steve King, though.
Sure.
Is Steve King's message the direction you want to see this Republican Party go?
No, it's not the direction we want to see the party go. But the point I'm making is, we have to understand that the Republican Party and a lot of people in this country feel that the illegal immigration problem is a major problem that's affecting the economy, that is affecting jobs.
Paris, isn't it just as easy as saying it just like you said it?
I wish he would say it. That's the point I'm making. I'm not defending him. I'm not defending him.
He's a guy who said
Here you go. You're run off the list of your talking points. But what I'm saying is, let me finish.
that no other civilization has contributed anything valuable to society other than white people.
I'm not defending Stephen King. What I'm saying is that I wish the congressman would change the way he messages about something that a lot of people genuinely care about. Now, what he is going to be in for a rude awakening is that the browning of America, more Americans are going to look a little bit more like me and a little less like Maggie over here. Now that's
Margaret and Kate. Go ahead.
And we're very comfortable with that, Paris.
But it's because that's the way the country is going. But that makes them no less American, that makes them no less Republican, and it makes them no less people who really want the best for this country.
But again, it becomes nuance is lost often. Okay.
And by the way, I wasn't asking for nuance about admittedly blatantly racist things. But what I am saying is, let's not create the opposite sin, which is characterizing all Republicans as racist.
No, not
You
all.
also
Not
have,
all.
also have
Not all.
immediately
But
Carlos Curbelo standing up in his
Exactly.
own way, tweeting and saying, "What are you talking about?"
which makes
And
it
the
so
chair of the
disturbing
Iowa
when some
and the
people.
chair of the
Which
Iowa
makes it
Republican Party.
disturbing when some people don't condemn him immediately. But when Donald Trump has been going around saying "Make America Great Again," this is perhaps what he means by "Make
President
America
Clinton
Great
said the
Again."
same
I
thing.
do wonder this, Margaret. In your view, is Steve King relevant? What he says, does it carry weight?
As long as we're talking about him, we're making him relevant, right? Like, look, I mean, he is tapping into, and Paris is right, he taps into a discomfort about immigration, a discomfort about all these things, but he gets pressed because he says crazy things,
Well,
right?
and also,
he is on the
And
fringe.
so
long
does
time,
Donald
and
Trump.
an elected and re-elected member of Congress, and someone
His
who's
district.
From a very safe district, and this is the problem we have with safe districts. We don't have competitive districts. He will never have a competitive primary challenge unless he goes against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump hand selects the person who primaries him and then campaigns for him.
Just like
so
Robert Byrd
there are
kept
safe,
getting
only
reelected over and over
35
again.
congressional districts across the country every time are in competitive seats, right? That's it. Just 35. We fight over 35 out of 435. That's it. So Steve King will always have a seat as long as he wants to, and so will his liberal Democratic members from Los Angeles and Chicago and New York City.
And the question that will come, the immediate question is you're saying more people need to speak out against this and speak out against it quicker. Do you think this is a scenario when Steve King was so close with this president when he was campaigning? Is this an incident where Donald Trump should speak out?
No, I think we can't go down the line and say every time.
I just want you to know. I'm not leading the witness. I truly want to hear you.
I don't think so because
The answer is yes, he should speak out. I'm going to answer the question for you because you don't apparently have the courage to do it for yourself, Paris. Yes, Donald Trump should speak out.
Okay,
don't
Keith,
personally
stop.
mo-
Paris,
that's
you're
final
doing a
word.
great job of reading your talking points, but this is what I'm
There's
going
no
to
talking
say.
points that say that.
This is
I
what
don't
I'm
want
going
to
to
see your
say.
face for
then.
I want to hear this.
What you two are doing is demonizing each other personally when you may just disagree politically. Okay,
No, I'm
and
not-
this
I'm
is
not
not
demonizing-
contributing
I'm not
to the
demonizing.
firmament
I'm
of this
saying he should
country.
have the courage to speak out against the man who is engaged in racist,
If
xenophobic
I
behavior
believe that,
repeatedly.
if I
That's
believe,
disturbing.
Paris
if I
might be
believe,
speak-
if I
Paris,
believe
speak
President
out.
Trump was a racist or a xenophobic person, I would speak out against him. But I don't believe it. So just because you don't agree with that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person
I didn't
or
say you
any
were a
less
bad
black.
person.
Well, that's what you
Guys.
insinuated. But the point is this. When President Obama weighed, I didn't think President Obama should weigh in every single time some crazy lunatic liberal said something that was bad or crazy, just because they might have been on his campaign.
From the
And I
Beer
don't-
Summit on, yeah.
Right,
keep
and
going.
I don't think that President Trump should do the same thing. Now, if it rises to the occasion that if the Speaker of the House says something, or the Republican Party passes a platform something that is totally out of the mainstream, then he should say something. But if every
one
single
distinction.
person on the fringe says something, and President Trump, he'd be speaking all day long because there's millions of Americans who have different opinions that are outside the mainstream on both sides of the aisle.
Okay, quick.
One quick distinction. President Trump is saying some of the same things or types of things that Steve King is saying. That never happened with President Obama. He wasn't saying the far left things that people were criticizing other people for saying. President Trump has more of a responsibility to speak out about those things because he is himself contributing to that atmosphere.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up for us, new video, new questions.